Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to Mayflower Church, where every Sunday is a holiday. Seems like. And we believe that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. It really is 2017. Thank goodness. And here we go, but not gently, into this new year. The scripture lesson is familiar and appropriate for this moment. It comes from Ecclesiastes. Everything has its time. For everything there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Here ends this reading inspired by God. May God grant to us wisdom and courage for interpretation.
So I guess if you are a baby boomer, when you hear Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, you actually hear Pete Seeger or the Byrds. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn. I see you, baby boomers. I see you. While working on this sermon, I was approached by 3 different 60-somethings who asked what I was preaching on, and that's what they started singing when I read them the passage. The Byrds' recording is likely responsible for more people memorizing Bible verses than all of the Billy Graham revivals put together. Although most people may not know they're actually quoting scripture. Ecclesiastes is part of the wisdom books of the biblical canon. Proverbs, Song of Songs, Job, along with the apocryphal books of Sirach and Wisdom of Solomon, those are the rest. One might think that these are the books that include everything that would eventually become church doctrine. I mean, these are the wisdom books. But nope, they are not. There is hardly any high theology to speak of, no grand explanations, no Christology, nothing about worship. These books are about the day-to-day. They are a good reminder that human beings wrote the Bible, not some magic man in the sky. Or at least not a man. I can neither confirm nor deny that a woman was actually responsible. Real flesh and blood people wrote the Bible, and that is of great relief to me. People have been thinking and wondering about what we're doing here since the beginning. It is in our DNA. Whoever it was that wrote Ecclesiastes was definitely one of us. He said things like, there is nothing new under the sun, and all go to one place. All are from the dust, and all turn to dust again. His list of the seasons of life has me wondering about time. For everything there is a season, for everything a time. Yes, we know about those. Death and taxes, right? We know that grieving takes time. One does not simply flip a switch and get over it, whatever it is. But there is also the other side to that. Do we actually take time for every season? Do we take the time? Life seems too busy for that kind of mindfulness. A time to seek, That will cost a pretty penny. Tuition is expensive. Self-reflection is risky. A time to lose. No one chooses that option. A time to sew. Well, that's women's work. Repairing anything takes so much effort. A time to keep silence. But doesn't every email demand a response within the hour? A time to speak. Well, sticking your neck out for someone could end up badly. A time for war. Well, after the year we've had, is it really worth fighting the uphill battles of poverty or ignorance or discrimination? A time for peace. Who has all the time for these seasons? Well, we may never know, of course, if we never actually take the time. I wonder if we do not take the time because we are often trying to get out of whatever season we're in, always in a hurry or unwilling for our souls to be made uncomfortable. Joan Chittister tells a story about someone looking for enlightenment. "Where shall I look for enlightenment?" the disciple asked. "Here," the wise one said. "When will it happen?" the disciple asked. "It is happening right now," the wise one answered. "Then why don't I experience it?" "Because you don't look." "What should I look for?" "Nothing, just look." "Look at what?" "At anything your eyes light on." "But must I look in a special way?" "No, the ordinary way will do." "But don't I always look the ordinary way?" "No, you don't." "But why ever not?" "Because to look, you must be here, and you are mostly somewhere else." In his Christmas Eve homily, Robin named the fog of sadness that has collected around us and just won't seem to blow away. It would have been much easier to preach a boilerplate Christmas sermon, the kind that has a few quotes about light and babies. But quite frankly, that's not where most of us are. If you are a young preacher, it was an important lesson in being honest with one's congregation. While the beauty of our text this morning is that it reminds us that there are other seasons, the task before us is to take the time to be in each season, to look in the ordinary way at whatever time we are in, to not be too afraid or too anxious, and then to come out on the other side changed. So this morning, be here with your whole heart, with your whole mind, with whatever sadness that sits with you or whatever joy you have to celebrate. Be here with your grief over a marriage ended, a wayward child, or a grandparent that grows more frail with each passing day. Be here with the joy of a new baby, a stronger sense of self, or a renewed friendship. Be here with a sense of being in between, in the middle of something without a name, no longer on the far side, but not quite within swimming distance of the shore. For everything there is a season, if only we will take the time. Church is a place of practice. We are here to practice all kinds of things: confession, prayer, compassion, even resurrection. We are here to practice forgiving and being forgiven. Our purpose is for those ways to become second nature. And this morning we practice taking the time to remember, to think about those whose place at the table is empty, to say that we miss them still. Every year on this Sunday, we pause to remember the Mayflower family who died in the last 12 months. The care team, who has walked with many in our congregation through chronic illness, a difficult diagnosis and treatment, and even death, is coming forward now to light candles in remembrance of the Mayflower family and friends who died this year. To help us remember each person in their fullness, Robin and I have chosen a few lines from their eulogies or blessings that we gave at their memorial services. Around here, we love a person in all of their magnificent imperfection, what we cherished about them, what drove us crazy, their quirks, and their gifts. If we don't include it all, no one will know who we are talking about. There is a time to weep and a time to laugh, and we will take the time to do both. David Craighead. Betty and David met in Norman, and their big dates involved chocolate-dipped ice cream cones from Dairy Queen, which then turned into 51 years of marriage. David was the representative for House District 95 for many years. As of today, David, there are 37 days until the 2017 legislative session starts, and you can be sure we'll be there to make a fuss in your name. Rob Scott. One Halloween, Rob and Jeanette dressed up as Dorothy and the Scarecrow and went to a fraternity party. This is a good visual, especially when you consider that Rob was not the Scarecrow. After all, he had a PhD in linguistics. He had Dorothy write down to his little dog, which he called Incognito. And yes, he wore ruby red slippers. We miss you, Rob. Maggie Hayes. Maggie was one of those strong, independent, and assertive women that required only the speaking of her first name. Around here, the Guild did not speak of Maggie Hayes, just Maggie. Maggie was born at a time when white society said that women remained in the home, did not pursue higher education, and that it was not ladylike to participate in athletics. Newsflash, Maggie ignored all that. Maggie thought that both men and women were better partners if both were educated. In fact, that is what it means to be partners. Yes, Maggie, we're still listening. Frank Hudson. In 1982, Frank took his daughter, niece, and nephew, all teenagers at the time, on a 10-day road trip across the desert in his 1979 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, a convertible. 25 years later, they still refer to it as the trip. At some point along the way, they dipped into Mexico, and there is a funny story that you'll have to ask them to tell you, because sometimes the best stories are the ones people are afraid to tell the minister. We'll keep the music turned up for you, Frank. Jim Wilcox. Jim Wilcox, known to SNU students as both the grammar hammer and as a safe place on campus. One student remembers that until he met Jim, he thought that straight men, especially straight Christian men, were dangerous. With his kindness, Jim carved out a pocket of safety in what was so often a hostile environment for LGBT students. Dear Jim, we know that we will hear you before we see you again, whistling up the walk, coming to greet us. Heidi Johnson. Heidi's husband, Jerry, wrote this in a letter to his beloved. Thank you, Heidi, for so much joy you brought to my life. Of course, this is not how or when I wanted our time together to end, but I am so grateful for the time we did have together. You will live on, and not just in our memories. Heidi, you are cherished. Jean McCoy. When Jean's daughter received notice of her father's death, it said simply, "He's gone." And one of her most vivid memories is of Jean driving the family's ski boat all over Lake Tenkiller, letting everyone ski as long as they liked. But when the day was done, he would get this gleam in his eye and say, "We gone." And he would take the boat to the house, full bore. He seemed very alive in those moments, and as he was dying, she imagined Jean at the helm of the boat, flying down the lake, heading into the sunset. Don't wait up, Jean. We'll catch up eventually. Bob Morgan. When news anchor Tom Brokaw coined the phrase, "the greatest generation," to describe Americans that came of age in the Second World War and then returned to build the most prosperous and generous society on earth, he could have used a photo of Bob Morgan as the poster boy. A square jaw, a broad smile, athletic but not arrogant, eternally curious, devoted to his profession and his family, Bob lived the American dream while never forgetting that it was not equally available to everyone, especially to those who did not look like him. Thank you, Bob. Bob Lemon. Bob Lemon, who, when he learned that one of his sons was gay, educated himself on the issue in the last half of his life so that he could be the best father possible, and ended up becoming the most generous and unapologetic advocate for the rights of the LGBT community in the known universe. Bless you, Bob Lemon, for being white, straight, and male. You, of course, had no choice in the matter, but there are a whole lot of us who are not white, straight, and male, and we need more allies like you. Bless you, Bob Lemon. Hyla Glover, who said, "I appreciate you," every time she saw Robin. Hyla understood that the essential test of character is how you treat the other, in particular when you lift up those left out. She also had a peculiar but endearing way of starting a conversation. "Can I ask you a question?" But before you could answer, she had already begun to tell you her life story. She practiced family law because it was more entertaining than soap operas. She loved hot fudge sundaes at Kaiser's. She voted absentee just in case, and made it clear that she wanted to live long enough to see Donald Trump defeated. We are almost grateful that she did not live to see that hope unfulfilled. But don't worry, Hyla, there are nasty women everywhere, and we have a plan. Peyton, known to many of us as the divine Miss P. Oh, Peyton, the balcony is not the same without you. The other balcony people, they miss you, and your pastors miss hearing you add your part to the sermon. Your mom and dad, who we call Renee and Ryan, they still talk about your charm ray, which functioned as a tractor beam, reeling people in, pulling them close, making them fall in love with you. Peyton lived what we say every Sunday at Mayflower: love one another, every single other. It didn't matter if you were a stranger, family, friend, the person sticking her with a needle or taking her vitals, changing a diaper, accessing the port, or messing with the NG tube. She gave you a wave, she gifted you a smile, and more often than not, she reached out for you to hold her. She loved, big, fiercely, completely. Peyton, we're trying hard to follow your lead, sweet baby girl. We light the last pillar for friends of the congregation. Bless you, beloveds of Mayflower. We love you, and we will not forget you. You have by now noticed that there are other candles on the table, and these candles are for all of us. The candles are of grief and of sadness, of loneliness. They are candles of celebration, of epiphany, and of healing. Which season are you in? Is it a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, or a time to dance? As the music plays softly, you are invited to sing along. You are invited to come forward and light a candle or two, perhaps say a prayer. If you need someone to pray with you or give you a hug, Robin and I will be standing to the side. Come, for all is ready.
Time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To season turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time